Hello my friends, welcome to Collage Class. Today we are going to focus on two major things. One is going to be creating funky backgrounds, and I'll explain what that is in just a second. And we're going to introduce ourselves to modeling or molding paste, okay? So the first thing, let me show you this one because it's smaller. I'm going to flip this one over so we can kind of have this white background. All right, so this is a collage that I did. I don't love it, but I did it on the creative backgrounds that we're going to work on making today. And then I added a book page, and I added a door that I had in my stash of goodies. And then I added some flower petals, and then added little things to the center. So this has got a lot of 3D going on. Again, I don't love this one, but I felt that it was important for me to share it with you. You might love it, I don't know. But I felt that I wanted to definitely share it with you and take special note of this background, because that's something we're going to be working on today. Now, the similar idea and feeling is this collage. So let me get this one out of the way. As you can see, this one's larger, but also, and let me see here. Yep, okay. I was making sure you could see all of it. You're just missing a little on the top and the bottom. But what we've got is our background page, and it's, you'll see. And then over top of that, I put this piece of paper that already had these interesting fibers on it. So I thought that was really cool, and I liked the way the colors worked together. And then I added this magazine image. I just thought it was unique and unusual. And then on the bottom, you'll notice that I added an X, an O, and a 4, and that was made with molding paste. So that's what we're going to get into today. We're going to have fun. Don't stress about it. Now, you're going to want to gather something like either a cardstock or a mixed media paper, or even a watercolor paper. Paper that can handle some liquid would be good, but if you don't have that in your stash, that's okay. Let's go ahead and use maybe a piece of cardstock, or if you don't have that, grab a cereal box and we can use the brown side of it. You know, you can use what you have in your home. You don't have to go out and get anything special, really. Okay, now, once you get whatever you're going to use for your background, you're going to also want to grab, if you have some, your molding or your modeling paste, because we're going to do some of that. And then you're also going to grab some paints. Before we get any further into this, I did want to show you that I did some of this modeling paste or molding paste on tissue paper. So if you wanted to have things on hand that you could just pull apart or cut apart and use, it's kind of fun to do it on that paper. This is one, my stencil was too thin, and actually you're going to want to grab some stencils. I forgot to mention that. This stencil was a little bit thin. Not that I wouldn't try it again, but it was kind of fine. But this would look good with ink over it, and we're going to experiment with that today. This one was a little bit of a better stencil, and let me move the paper. There we go. And with a little bit of like ink on it, I think that could look really cool. This one I put a dab of paint inside of the modeling paste, and it came out to be such a pretty color, so I like that. And then this one is another stencil. I hope you can see it. It kind of looks like a doily on there. Isn't that so pretty? So that was a lot of fun. I just wanted to share that with you because that is something that you can do, is you can put it on this is kind of like baker's paper, but anyway, I wanted to mention that. And then this one, I want to show you this one too. This one was completed on mixed media paper. It's much more firm, so these could be cut out. And actually, that is what I did with these. So these came off of this paper, and I just put a little bit of ink to make them match the color in her dress. So that was done on a firmer paper. So you can do it either way. I just wanted to mention that and share that with you. Now the first thing we're going to do today is grab one of our pieces of paper, and we are going to do a colorful background. So I'm going to flip this one over. And I just went over, really, honestly, I went over and just grabbed some paints. These will all work nicely together. I don't have any theme in mind. I just want to get paint onto the paper. So you could grab some things that might give you some texture. I might experiment with a feather just to see how I can get the paint to go down with that. If you have a sponge, that would work. If you have burlap, believe it or not, that will work. And I might experiment with both the feather and the burlap just so you can see. I actually have a sponge, so we can try that too. I wish it had a few more holes in it, but that's okay. We're still going to give it a try. All right, so I've got 3 items here. If you have some of these items, that's great. If you don't, let me think, what else could you use? You could get a paper towel, sort of ball it up, and then just dab it on the page. That would work with fabric as well. If you had something from outside, perhaps flower petals or sort of anything that you can just dip in paint and maybe drag it across the page or stamp it on the page, you could try that. Remember a few weeks ago we did the circles? You could do something like that if you wanted to. So we just want to get an interesting background going. So what I'm going to do, I want to be really free about this and really open. We're just doing a background, so you can't mess this up, okay? So whatever it comes out, we're going to embrace it, and then we'll use it how we see fit. All right, I'm going to move my paints over, and I think what I'd like to do actually is start with this. And what I'd like to do, I'm not going to though, what I'd like to do is use my gel print roller because it makes a fantastic print on the paper. Let me show you. This is an example of how it comes out. So you can see this started on green paper, but I used blue paint and you can see the texture in the paint. Isn't that fun? I used 2 different shades of blue and I love the way this turned out. But just in case you don't have a jelly print roller, I'm going to try to figure out how I can do this without one. I'm thinking of putting the paint down first and then pressing this into it. Let's give it a try. Let's see what happens, okay? So I'm going to start with, maybe I'll start with this one. Now, my daughter added water to this paint, and that's why I chose this one, but it probably would be better if it was not a watery consistency. But let's just splash it on there. And then, do we want to, yeah, see, it's too watery. So let me just spread this out with my hands. We're just going to move it around on the page. Again, whatever happens, we're going to embrace it. Now, I like this. We're getting there. We're getting somewhere now. This is great. See, look, that's coming together. I like it. Oops. All right, what do you think? I mean, that's pretty good. Just dabbing that around. There we go. So get a little paint on there, just dab it around. Yep, I like it. Check that out. I'm gonna go up here and get this edge too. Sometimes we don't get the edges, so I like to get in there if I can. Yeah, this is coming together. Now save your burlap that has the paint on it because now you can use this for another piece, okay? So I'm going to set this over here on the side and just let that dry. All right, we got that done. Now let's go ahead, let's see what happens with our feather if we start to, well, let me do this and drag this around a little bit and then we'll get a color on there. Gives me an idea of how it's gonna flow. So let's try some pink. We could go solid pink or metallic pink. Let's go metallic pink. And I'm going to go ahead and put this paint actually on some paper and then dip my feather into it. There we go. Metallic paints tend to be a little bit more thin than the other non-metallic paints, so just so that you know. All right, so I'm just going to sort of do this. There we go. I like that already. And I can turn the paper. Now, if I wanted to add more, I could, but I'm going to leave it like that for now, and then I'm not going to waste this. I think I'm just going to dab this around. Okay, so far, so good. So now we have our sponge. Really tempted to sort of pluck some of this out of here. I just think I should. Just do it on one end and then we'll dip and sort of do like that. Let's see what happens. You'll have to put in the comments, what did you decide to use for your texture funky paint? I really like that, you guys. So now I'm going to do the same with a little bit of the pink. This is not the metallic pink, it's the regular pink. So I'm just going to put it over the gray. Move it around with my finger, and then we're going to go at it again. All right, my friends, if you've got your background paper done, let's go ahead and set that aside. We're going to let that dry, and while that's drying, we're going to go ahead and experiment with our molding paste. If you don't have any, that's okay. You can skip this part of the video. All right, friends, I'm actually going to switch gears real quick because I don't want to do it like this and then have to cut it out and use it. What I'd like to do is do it over our background. Now, my paper is dry. Well, let me make sure. Yeah, my paper's dry. So if yours isn't yet, you can blast it with a hairdryer, set it in the sun, or if you have a heat tool, you could dry it up like that. Or you could grab yourself some lunch and then, come back to the video. Either way. But anyway, I grabbed a stencil. Now, you can grab any stencil that you want. You can grab a big stencil, a little stencil, anything that you have. What if you don't have a stencil? Well, you might be able to use, if you had burlap, you might be able to use this, although I don't know for sure if it would go through the small holes, but it might. I have a small spatula. That's what I'm going to use. But you can use a regular butter knife if you want to, or you could use a spatula from your kitchen. I wouldn't recommend using a big one, or actually, you know what you could use? A frosting spreader that you would use when you are decorating a cake. That's an option as well. It's starting to get dark, so I know the lighting has changed, but hopefully that's not an issue. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Now, as mentioned, when I did this the first time, I actually used molding paste, and this is modeling paste. I do believe that they're similar, but we're going to go ahead and experiment and see what happens. First thing I'm going to do is check the texture and see if it feels different from the first one that I used. It absolutely feels no different, so that's interesting to me. All right, well, here we go. Some people work with it a little bit thicker. I don't particularly care to work with it super thick. I'm going to put mine on relatively thin. You can do it however you want, but the thinner it is, of course, the quicker it dries. Again, we are spreading it like we are baking, well, decorating a cake, I should say. Now, I neglected to add any paint to it. So it's going to be white, obviously, but you can add paint and you can add ink. When I did the blue one that I showed you earlier, I had actually added ink, and it was the kind of ink that you would use for calligraphy, and that was kind of cool. But since we put paint on our paper, I think that this will be okay, even that it's white. And also, I'll show you a fun technique with ink pads that you can use on this to change it from white to whatever color you'd like to use. All right, I think this is done. Just spreading it one more time just to make sure. I think we have a good coverage here. So I'm going to go ahead and lift this, and I'm going to go ahead and wash my stencil right away. Here we go. Loving it so far. Look at the pattern. Isn't that fantastic? I'm so excited. Actually, I'm very tempted while I've got this out to do another one. This is a piece that I gel printed. Let's go ahead and add some of this to that. I think that'll be fun. I was just sitting here thinking, wouldn't it be kind of cool to do some on a book page? Let's give that a try when we're done with this one. I just want to make sure I got the paper under there and centered and all that good stuff. If you wanted to add colors to yours, what I did to do that is I put some in a small bowl. I didn't put too much in there. And then I added a few drops of my ink. But my friends added paint to theirs, so either one works, like I mentioned before. So you could experiment with that. And here's the great thing about experiments is basically, no matter how it comes out, you can always use your experiments on something. So master boards, whatever, because like master boards we cut and then we use the parts that we want, or we end up covering a lot of them. And, so that's just an idea. I do realize that this is not truly collage, but it's going to be. So I'm just sharing with you guys how to make some creative backgrounds for your collage. And it's a light introduction into basically some mixed media. All right, let's pull this up and see what we've got. Oh, I like that. That's super, super cool. I'm very excited about that piece. Well, since we're having such a good time, let's go ahead and let's grab a book page. Let's see what happens if we do this on a book page. I'm going to set these aside to dry. They don't take terribly long if you keep them somewhat thin. All right, let's give this a go. All right, let's see if we can peel this up. Oh, I'm in love. Look, how great is that? That's fantastic. And then I'll show you what to do with your ink pads once this dries. Now, I'm going to go ahead and clean this off, and then I'm going to come back and clean off my desk because I did get a little bit on there, and these can dry. And then we'll check the first one and see if that's ready to play with yet. Okay, my friends, my modeling paste has dried. I'm going to pick this up so you can see it. I really like how interesting this paper is. Isn't it neat? So we have the colors underneath that we applied with paint, and we used a feather, a sponge, and one other thing that I can't remember. Yes, I know what we used. feather, sponge, and our burlap. That's what it was. So we put some interesting marks down on the paper, and then we let that dry, and then we went over it with the modeling paste and a stencil. So here's the stencil that we used. And we popped it on there and put the modeling paste on just like we were frosting a cake. And this is what we got, and I love it. So here's the next one. This one is so cool. So this was a jelly print page that I had done in the past and had used sort of a spirally stencil on the jelly print page, and it had the red, the brown, and white in it. And then we went over that with the stencil, and oh my goodness, this is my favorite one. These results are absolutely amazing, so I can't wait to play with this. So you don't have to use modeling paste in your collages, but I wanted to share the technique in case you want to get into some mixed media stuff and want to create more interest in your collages. This is definitely a way to do this. I'll show you some other things too, but I definitely wanted to share that you could do this in your collages, and and it could be pretty cool. Now here are the ones that we did on the book pages, and I love this too. I think this is fantastic, and I'm looking forward to adding some ink colors onto that, just to see what effect that we get. So those are our results. Let's move forward. Friends, real quick before we move forward, I want to talk about this stencil that I used. I got this stencil from my friend Darcy. Darcy's Mixed Adventures with Mixed Media. And I wanted to mention that in case you love this stencil and you wanted one for yourself. I will put the rest of the information in my description box. She gave me a nice little card with all the info on it, but I had to clean up for Christmas and now I can't find it. But I got it through Darcy, and she sells them through PM Artist Studios, so you could check that out. And she also gave me a discount code, and I hope to find that for you. Put all of that in my description box for you if you wanted to check out her stencils. Now, moving forward, I think what we're going to do today is we're definitely going to experiment with at least one of these, and we'll see what happens when we add some ink. For this one, I think I'd like to go with the brown ink. This one I like so much that I'm not going to do anything to it. I'm leaving this one alone. But this one, I think let's go ahead and experiment with this one with perhaps this ink. I mean, why not? It's a great color. So let's start with that. And then we'll go ahead and make our collages. We'll finish up our collages. Now the first thing I want to do is I don't always make giant collages, because what if I want to put these in my art journal or something? They can't be huge. So frequently I'll just go ahead and cut my papers in half. That way I can use them on cards. I can use them in my art journal. I can use them whatever. So making them smaller, to me, makes it a little bit more manageable. Since these are not already bound in a book, I have the freedom to do that. So let's go ahead and cut this. And I'm wondering, if I cut this one like this, then later on I could actually cut this in half if I wanted to. So I think that's what I'll do. And that way we'll have a decent size piece, but it won't be so big that it's hard to work with. Now, I'm also going to go ahead and clean up the edges. I think it'll just look a little bit nicer if I do that. Just tighten everything up a little bit. All right, and there that is. That one's ready. Ready to play with. And then let's grab this one as well. So what I'm thinking, now there's all kinds of ways that you can get color onto these shapes, but I'm thinking I'm just going to take my ink pad. And you could use several different colors. You don't have to just stick with one. There's a couple ways we can do this. We can dab it, just go over it like that, or we can grab a dauber or a brush. So since this is our first time, and I don't want to make a hot mess of it, because I only made the 2 book pages, I think let's go ahead and try the brush. Okay, so I like that. It's subtle. All right, so that's definitely one way to do it. Now, the only downfall, the only negative that I see to doing it like this is some of the brown is getting on the paper as well. And that's not a big deal if you really want to sort of grunge your paper up, okay? So just know if you use the brush, some of this is going to transfer over onto the paper. Now let's experiment. It's a good experiment. Let's try this. If we just press this onto it, let's see what happens when we do that. Okay, so I'm going to do it again. All right, so I pressed too hard and made sort of a line here, which is no big deal. Probably that's going to get covered. But it gave good coverage, but that also got on the paper. Let me see if I can do it just a little bit lighter. What if I put this down and then like barely press it, just like a little tiny bit? Well, then that hardly does anything. So good to experiment with it. So I definitely like the brush technique. It goes on smoother. And even though some gets on the paper, I still think we have more control over it. So I'm going to go ahead and add some brown using the brush for the rest of these. And you know what? I might go ahead, since these kind of, I don't know if you can tell, let me get them close to you. So these ones here, they almost have like mini dots on them. I don't know if you can tell. Whereas these are a little bit smoother. So definitely, I think I'll go over these as well, just to add a little smoothness to them. And you know what we might do on this one? We've got them all covered in brown now, but I'm thinking I might grab my black just to mix it up, because if you look at this, let me do it like this. The coloring, it seems uneven because of what we did down here. So I'm going to get some black and do it here and there and see if we can just change it up a little bit. What I'll do is I'll try to get it not on the paper. I'll try to just get it on the pieces. I'll just do the best I can. Some is getting on the paper, but kind of like that look. It's got a little bit of a grungy feeling to it. All right, what do we think about this, guys? I think it looks kind of cool. It looks very grungy, and so we'll have to keep that in mind as we are creating our collage. Now let's go ahead and move on to this one. So I was thinking about using the blue. It's kind of a teal. And let's start with that, but you know what? We might go ahead and use some pink as well. And I just was thinking about it, and gold could look very cool, right? I don't think we're gonna go there, but I'm just thinking out loud and just considering the fact that gold could look pretty neat. All right, so I like this. Let me get another book page. Actually, I'll just use this one. It'll be fine. Very cool. I really like the way that looks. What do you guys think? Do you like that? We have two completely different styles, different pieces, and that's what makes art so fun. All right, let's move on. Now going back to this piece kind of as our inspiration, I think what we'll do is we will utilize these pieces sort of as like this background piece. Remember how this one has these fibers on it? Well, this right here can be in lieu of that. So we need a piece to mat, and we didn't need an image from a magazine or a book. Now last week we used the other half of this, which was the tissue paper when we made the tissue paper backgrounds. So let's go ahead and use this as our mat. This will fit on it, and I think that has quite a cool contrast. So let's do that. We're going to trim up these edges, make sure this is good and straight. Yep, that edge is straight. Let me check this one. That one looks good. I just need to clean up the paper that's hanging over. And this one looks good as well. So I'll just clean up these papers. If you missed the episode with the tissue paper, you can see what a cool impact they can have when you glue them down. So, and I wish you could feel it, because you can feel the texture, and it's just super cool. Like I said too, you can tell that there's it just has such a cool impact, and you can use any color you want. I went with blues and greens, but you could use white and pink or red, and just whatever you wanted, orange and yellow, whatever you want. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do, we got this, which is great. I'm so glad. Now we're gonna go ahead and put this piece down. I think that's gonna look pretty cool. So I'm just gonna go ahead and use my glue. I've got my Aleene's Tacky glue here. Now, this has got some texture on it. You guys know I always like to really make sure things are pressed down properly. So I'm gonna go ahead and flip it over and press that way. And that way I'm not tearing up these things. And I'm gonna grab a fresh book page, put it down just in case this ink on here is not dry yet. We'll just put this down like that. We'll press that down. And I do tend to use my scissors, although sometimes I do use my spatula. And I just like to go over it, and it makes sure that, you know, there's no air bubbles. And it makes sure that all of the paper's making contact with each other so that you don't get anything that's going to peel up. Since we've got blues and pinks, I thought the blues and creams in here would go nicely with the collage. I want to mention to you that I got this image out of a book that was given to me by my friend, Virginia Martin, author. And so thank you, Virginia, for this. I really appreciate it. So let's go ahead and see. I think I might go ahead and tear this. Let's see what happens. I'll go ahead and use a ruler, but I thought it would be fun to have a little bit of an edge. And that's so pretty. I think I'll keep that. I can use that for something else. Now I know that these are spread pretty wide, so I'm going to have to get pretty close to the bikes. Now let me measure this real quick. I might have to take a little bit more off of each side. Let's see if this is going to set here. Yeah, I think I will have to. I'm going to take a little bit more off of this one. Not too much. And then for this one, I'm probably going to have to take off a decent amount, but let's find out. Okay, not terrible, just the front. And now we just have to take a little bit off the bottom so that it's tattered like the other three sides. Now, to give it a punch, we're going to go ahead and use our blue ink right around the edges. Oh, you can use your daubers. It's truly personal preference. You do not have to do this like this. I just tend to do that, but I'm not saying that that's the way to ink your pages. I'm going to get just a little bit more in each corner. There we go. I think if we place that right there, that's looking pretty neat. Going to flip it over and get our glue on. Now, just like before, we're going to go ahead and get a fresh book page, put that down so that we can press this down really well. All right, friends, I thought some words would be good, and I have a couple here that I think would be pretty neat. Okay, so let's just say it's going to be these two. We have, let me get these off the page. So we have Lost and Found, which I think looks great. Nice and bold. Let me get this here, okay? So you can see that one. Then we have Dreams Are Faraway Places and Daring Adventures. That could go right here. Looks nice. And then Own Your Dreams could go here. So I wonder which one you guys like the most. I love the boldness of this one. I really, really do. But I also really like the phrase here on this one. It says, Dreams of Faraway Places and Daring Adventures. And it just works with it because we got the bicycles on the beach and these just gorgeous colors. So I'm thinking I'm going to go with this one. We're going to go ahead and get this glued down. Friends, I absolutely love the way that this turned out. You know, sometimes we would add other things, but this is one of those pieces where you just do not need to overdo it. It's perfect the way it is. This one I might actually put in a frame and hang in my house. So anyway, let's get on to the next one. It's going to be a completely different style because look, we have our grungy colors going on here. So let's see what we can come up with for this one. Friends, since we did one in real time, I figured we would go ahead and I would speed this one up. So I have this on 2 times speed, which doesn't really look that fast right now. But anyway, so we've got our background page that we created earlier today, and I found in my stash a couple of things that I thought would look nice in a collage. So this paper here with the 2 people, they're looking up at an airplane. It's sort of like a travel themed piece. And I figured I'd go ahead and put this window over it because I could get the sizes to work, and I just thought it added an extra element that looked pretty neat. So I'm getting that glued. I used actually my glue stick, and because those things, this frame, they're so thin and they're really hard to get other kinds of glue on it. So I just glue sticked the whole travel piece with the people on it and then pressed the window piece on top of that. As you can see, I am cutting off the parts that were sticking beyond the window frame. I have this vintage ticket, and I love the color of it, sort of this burnt orange, and it's going to go here on the bottom. And you'll notice in the window that I had just created, there's a little bit of orange in that. So those colors are going to work really nicely together. I'm going to add the window now, but you'll notice I'm not putting it directly in the center. It's over to the left just a little bit. Once I get this piece set, I'm going to add another piece, and right now it's on my desk on the left-hand side, and it says, "So the adventure begins." And you know when you buy a calendar and you flip it over on the back, it's got all the little pictures of what is on the calendar? Well, that's where this came from. And I always save those because you never know where you can use them. This is going in the upper right hand, kind of in the corner, not quite all the way up in the corner. Trying to create a pattern for the eye to flow. So now I have a Tim Holtz ticket, and I'm going to put that on the bottom right over top of the other ticket. So this collage so far, to me, talks about travel and adventure, and then we have some tickets to go see some shows. Now I'm adding a pocket watch because I think it just works with this, and when we travel, we need to keep track of the time. I love how this turned out. You have to tell me what you think. Let me grab the other one real quick and show them both to you at the same time, because I want you to tell me if you have a favorite or not. So here they are side by side, completely different from one another. So yeah, let me know which one is your favorite. Also, if you participated this week, please feel free to share in my Facebook group, Creating with Jovi Journals and Crafts. It's a private group. I would love, love, love to see what you made. So feel free to post in there. And if you have any questions, let me know. If there's a video, a how-to video that you'd like for me to do, I am happy to do that. I'm going to try to make Wednesdays my how-to days, you know, basically as far as videos. So Fridays I have lives, Wednesdays I'm going to try to do how-tos, and then Mondays will be just sort of open for whatever's going on, perhaps collaborations or something like that. So my friends, thank you so much for spending some time with me. I hope you enjoyed it today. Thanks for watching. See you soon.